Ladies and gentlemen, now we are experiencing what is called full-on cope. We are seeing what happens when you tell the fans, hey, don't watch my show. When you tell the fans that they're all racist, when you tell them that they are all suffering from white mediocrity, what ends up happening is that you end up drinking, or I should say inhaling, in massive amounts of copium to the point where now you are trying to make it seem as if we're the ones that are lying about your viewership data, even though your viewership data is available for everyone to see.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Now, what am I talking about? Well, obviously, I'm talking about Doctor Who, ladies and gentlemen. I made a couple of videos on Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who new season, and his new season is god-awful. Let's just put it out there like we do in every single video. It's not the fact that you're black. You can run that whole racial oppression card all you want, but at the end of the day, people just don't like you as a person because you are insufferable. This is what happens when you have ideology taking over your entire mindset, and you are just literally unbearable for people to either listen to or in this case watch, because you told them, hey, if you don't like leftist ideology being shoved in your face 24/7, then you might as well not watch this show. If you think that I as a black man am somehow not oppressed, then you shouldn't watch this show. And they constantly try to run this narrative, and now that people have chosen, over 2 million people have chosen not to tune in to this TV show, and honestly it's more than that, but I'm just going based off their old numbers. If over 2 million people have chosen not to watch this show, you really mean to tell me every single one of them are racist? No, that's obviously not the case. So let's get into this article, guys, from That Park Place. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, we have an article here with a headline that reads, "News outlets decries former Doctor Who fans and attempts to gaslight them, saying that they are openly misinterpreting viewership data." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, even the mainstream news outlets are trying to run damage control for Doctor Who. And then you wonder why that mainstream journalist that was melting down over YouTubers taking over their job, you wonder why that is happening. Gee, I can only imagine why YouTubers are taking over the job of mainstream journalists. It's insane. An online news outlet, Fiction Horizon, which, by the way, Fiction Horizon, you couldn't have picked a better name considering that you are lying through your teeth, decried former Doctor Who fans as angry and attempted to gaslight them, claiming that they are openly misinterpreting viewership data. In an article published on May 16th titled "Angry Fans Openly Misinterpret Doctor Who Viewership Data, Calling the Series Woke and Unwatchable Despite Praise from Critics," author Arthur S. Poe, I guess, attempts to justify his false headline by claiming that the viewership data out of the BBC does not include numbers from Disney+. In the article, Poe admits viewership for the first 2 episodes was abysmal writing. After the first 2 episodes were released on BBC One, the viewership numbers were released a couple of days later, revealing that Space Babies, the first episode, was watched by 2.6 million viewers, with The Devil's Cord, the second, having an overnight audience of 2.4 million. And while these numbers are certainly low, they are not the complete numbers, as we are about to see. Well, let's just make it very clear, ladies and gentlemen. Doctor Who never needed Disney Plus in order to garner any kind of viewership before. We're talking about a TV show that was getting 8 to 10 million viewers per episode. It was fucking insane what they were able to pull with the original Doctors. And now, ever since they did Jodie Whittaker, even though her initial debut episode did over 10 million views, which is nuts. 10 million views for Jodie Whittaker's debut, and then towards the end, she ended with 4 to 4.5 million or so, so she hardcore tanked. But still, at the end of the day, Ncuti Gatwa's viewership from the BBC alone, when compared to other Doctor Who seasons from the BBC alone, is nowhere near the number. It is such an abysmal failure. You gotta laugh at it, to the point where now you have these articles, you have these mainstream outlets that are trying to run damage control for the BBC. It says in the article, I already read this, he then attempts to claim that comparing this to the previous episodes of Doctor Who to these overnight numbers from BBC One is misinterpreting the data because the show also appears on Disney Plus and BBC iPlayer. Poe writes, on the other hand, this time the series is available both on Disney Plus and BBC iPlayer for the first time, so many people had the opportunity to watch the series on these platforms. Listen, that's great. fantastic. Great for Doctor Who being available on multiple platforms now. It doesn't change the fact that your numbers, you need to now multi-platform stream this show in order to get anywhere close to the viewership that you were just recently at your worst. Imagine that. Imagine trying to justify the numbers that are happening right now with Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who and say, well, you're not looking at the other platforms it was available on. You're only looking at the BBC numbers. Well, listen, that's what the numbers were before. The BBC numbers were more than good enough to carry the show. But this is what happens when you make leftist ideology your forefront of a TV show. Now you're so desperate for viewers, you got to go multi-platform just to catch up to the worst viewers you had on a singular platform before. It says, next to Poe explains that the numbers that were released reflect only the overnight viewers on BBC One and do not include streaming viewers, which means they are incomplete. There is certainly a small number of fans of the series who have opted to see the episodes via these platforms, so the low ratings are only partial and do not reflect the actual numbers, which are probably going to be released later. He then derides former fans of the show. This, of course, hasn't stopped some angry fans, mostly conservatives and anti-woke crusaders, to label the series as dead. Well, it is dead. Let's continue. However, the show's overnight ratings were still abysmal, even compared to the Christmas special. The BBC reported that the most recent Christmas special, which was a debut episode for Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor, brought in 4.7 million in overnight numbers. In comparison, Space Babies had overnight viewership of 2.6 million, and The Devil's Cord had an overnight viewership of 2.4 million. That's a nearly 50% decline from the Christmas special. That is atrocious and shows viewers are indeed abandoning the show. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, if you compare apples to apples, the original numbers versus the BBC numbers, right, you're going to realize that, yes, it's a 50% drop. And the Christmas special, this 4.7 million viewership special, that was considered nowhere near as good as some of their previous specials. So even that number was terrible. And now they're half of that number. It's fucking awful. It says, as far as Disney Plus numbers, the show did not even chart on Samba TV's most streamed programs for the week on May 6th to May 12th. The first two episodes debuted on May 11th. So, in fact, the Christmas special did not even chart either. So, again, it also did not chart on Nielsen's streaming chart. Oh my God, this is terrible. Furthermore, the third episode has since released, and its overnight numbers are even worse than the first two, with only bringing in 2.04 million viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, Doctor Who, unfortunately for Doctor Who fans, it is dead. It is completely dead. I don't know what they're going to do, but at this point, I think you have to remove Russell T Davies from Doctor Who. I don't know how important he is to the series. All I know is that Russell T Davies, the current iteration of him anyway, is not having the best interests of the show at his heart. He is trying to push leftist ideology. He has openly admitted this. Even Ncuti Gatwa has openly admitted this. This entire season is supposed to be some freaking massive haven for leftist ideology. They said so themselves, literally word by word. I don't have to make it up. They said so. And honestly, I just feel like you to save this, you have to remove Russell T Davies. You just have to. Ncuti Gatwa, he's going to come and go. He's going to be completely irrelevant in a couple of years and nobody will be talking about him. But you still have to make sure that you get a proper showrunner to try to bring Doctor Who back to what it was, man. It is quite sad to see the massive downfall of a once beloved TV show pulling in some insane numbers. And don't get me wrong, for Doctor Who to pull in 2.2 or 2.0 million viewers is still considered good viewers by any other show's standard. But when it comes to Doctor Who and what that show was and the standard that was set by that TV show, it is fucking awful, and you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. And I hope that eventually, you know, in time, you're gonna have to sit down and start talking business with the public and stop gaslighting people to thinking that you're actually successful when it's very clear that you're not. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.